Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I make this 5 o'clock on the dot, so we will begin the meeting of the Cabinet on Wednesday, the 11th of June. I will begin with apologies for absence, and I have Councillor Hashani attending online. And I also have Councillor Malcolm attending online, and I believe Councillor Shaw will be in attendance online, and also Councillor Gallant. There are no urgent matters. Matters to be considered in private. I don't think I need to give my usual instructions on matters to be considered in private, so I'll go straight to declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? There don't appear to be any. The minutes of the previous meeting are contained within the pack. Are Cabinet happy to agree that they are a true and accurate record of the previous meeting? So we move to appointments to subcommittees and outside bodies, which I don't believe there are any. And item number 7, the revenue and capital outrun for 2024-25. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. As always, by the time you get to mid-June, an element of almost circus has left town when you're talking about events that finished at the end of March. But I think it's worth highlighting, certainly through in table 1, which summarises the normal year of hard work, effort, excitement within local government financing, and the way we balanced out there. We suspect uniquely across London to have achieved a net surplus, albeit one which in proportion to our turnover is very small. We remain the beneficiaries of our treasury management strategy, but I think also credit must be given within services who fought very hard to bring down what were much higher projected overspends earlier in the year, particularly in adults and children's. That the battles we have around homelessness, temporary accommodation, of course, have been a matter of record at this and other meetings over the course of the last couple of years. But we are hopeful, more than hopeful, that our strategy is getting to grips with the worst of the overspends there. So open clearly to questions for colleagues, but thank you to all of you and to all the officers who've worked so hard to deliver this result.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Donnelly. And I think in the context of incredibly difficult years for local government, not least because of the rising pressures, specifically in homelessness, in addition to all the other areas of pressure that I know that we continue to face, to be in a position whereby we have made a small, one might say tiny, surplus in the year is a very positive thing when we think that 7 local authorities entered into situations last year that required exceptional financial support from the government. So, I really would thank officers who have done an incredible amount to keep on top of what are consistent and ongoing pressures that local government faces, not just here in Ealing, but across the board. So, we put on record our thanks for getting us to that position. And let's just hope with the announcements from today's comprehensive spending review and the forthcoming announcements on the fair funding settlement that we will have the confidence to plan for 3 years into the future and can perhaps produce even better results in the years ahead. So I put my record on thanks. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the Cabinet? No. In that case, can I ask that members review the recommendations of the report and ask that they're agreed? Thank you very much.
Agreed.
We move to item number 8, the Highways Works term contracts. Councillor Driscoll.
So this is a provision to allow us to extend a contract for 5 months with Murrells, and that's beneficial savings there because we extend at the current rate of agreement, and also then to go to market to look for further new provision for our continuous maintenance of highways throughout the borough. So it's quite a standard arrangement for contract provisions. So I'd welcome any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there is a question from Councillor Gallant. Who is coming off of mute, hopefully. No, I think Councillor Gallant, you need to come off of mute.
I think you can hear me now.
We can, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much. I just got a couple of questions here. If you look at page 36, that's paragraph 7. So there was an extension, an option to extend in 2021-2022, which was declined because it was assessed there'd be 11.45% increase on average of contract prices. Now, that looks like a gamble that might have paid off. Do you ever need more figures in retrospect, just to open that up and explain it a little bit? Second question, if I may, assuming these contracts are extended to the 31st of August 26, and thinking to the whole retendering process, can you outline how Murrell's performance and quality of work will be and has been assessed up until that point? So this is looking at the quality and performance of the current contractor.
Councillor Driscoll.
So the preference to having an extension now and keeping that allows us to maintain the current costings and savings rather than going to market and having an increase. So it was beneficial to maintain the contract with Murrells for that time period. Then we are required then to go to retender and to go to reprocurement. So then we will have to go to market and be exposed to market prices, and the way those contract is structured is in 2 lots so that we can make it more available and have greater competition rather than a larger lot, which then is restricted to larger, more significant suppliers. So we're trying to be as competitive and allow as many entrants into that marketplace as possible. So that was the first question. And the second question about quality. So it's not just about cost. We have service standards and inspections. So there's a delivery requirements of how work is finished and how it's addressed. And so then work is inspected and standards are set when the requirement for the work to be undertaken is set. So that's how each job is monitored and inspected. So it's a job by job lot is inspected and maintained. So it's consistent. I hope that goes through your points.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the Cabinet? No, I don't see any. In that case, if I could ask Cabinet members to review the recommendations in the report and ask that they're agreed. Thank you very much. We now move to item number 9, Make It Ealing a Business Improvement District, the bid ballot. Councillor Nagpal.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to enable a bid ballot to take place in central Ealing, where there is an established business improvement district since 2006. This is the Make It Ealing bid, and the process of a bid ballot takes place every 5 years. The Mayor's Growth Plan has identified Ealing Metropolitan Centre as an area that's capable of delivering economic growth. So the bid has a really important role in helping to achieve that vision. The bid is established and has already been going for almost 2 decades. The report and appendices set out all of the achievements of the bid over the last 5 years and their plan for the upcoming 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't had any requests to speak from opposition on this. Are there any questions or comments from members of the Cabinet? Fine. Okay. In that circumstance, if I could ask that you all review the recommendations in the report and ask that they're agreed. Thank you. Now moving on to item number 10, the improved early help offer and early help strategy. I will just say at the outset that obviously this was an issue that was subject to a motion at full council yesterday, in which, on advice from the monitoring officer, no member of Cabinet took part in that discussion and didn't vote on the substantive motion in order to not predetermine our discussions today. But of course, there were questions from members of the public and from political parties both within and outside of the chamber, that I know that we will want to address Councillor Blacker in order to give Cabinet a full understanding of what is in the report. So by way of process, I believe we're going to take a short presentation from you, Councillor Blacker. I know that we have a question or questions from the opposition, and then we'll move to the discussion. So Councillor Blacker for the introduction.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Yes, as you say, just to ensure that everyone has the relevant background and some of the context, given some of the, I think, confusion in some parts of the room last night, not parts that I think Cabinet were in. Some context and background, but I would draw your attention to the contents of the report and the recommendations therein and the appendices to that, because that is the supporting information for the decision this evening. So first of all, what is it that we are trying to solve? What is the problem? We know that we have increased demand for our statutory services. And although we do have fantastic outcomes for our looked after children, and we should be proud of that, it is clearly better that we prevent children from going into care and into our statutory services in the first place. We also know that demand is not spread evenly across the borough. We have pockets with higher numbers of children in need, child protection plans, looked after children. And we also know that that demand is across the age ranges. It's not just in the 0 to 5 space. And we have to have preventative services, early help for families of children of all ages. In addition to that, we also have demand for nursery places across the borough. And despite delivering a huge number, far in excess of our manifesto commitments of SEND places in the last few years, we are looking at a further 500 places needed in the next few years as well. And I think with reference to Councillor Donnelly's earlier report, with significant financial pressures in children's services, as well as the other demand-led services, we do have a responsibility to our residents to use their money most effectively and efficiently. So an initial proposal was developed to address that challenge. Families entering statutory services who aren't coming to our children's centres, but who would benefit from accessing early help, reducing that demand for services at the point of crisis through some targeted prevention work, a service that is local and personalised, tailored to communities and delivered where they need to be in response to changing demands, because we cannot simply rely on a single model for all of eternity. And of course, an emphasis on improving services through partnership with the people who use them, not just delivering services to people. There are also reforms coming focused on enhancing early help for families, and we want to get ahead of that and start delivering those benefits to our families, our residents, as soon as possible. So as a reminder, the proposal was to consolidate into 12 key centres with extended opening hours, strengthened outreach offer and improved digital services, and that is the table that we consulted on there. I won't. So in January, I took an ICMD, an individual cabinet member decision, to consult on those proposals at that formative stage with a full 12-week consultation to allow for the widest possible consideration and input, an open, a transparent and an inclusive consultation. I won't repeat all the details from the report, but the highlights on the screen show just how wide that exercise was. Over 2,000 responses to the survey and responsive to need by arranging an additional online event at the request of parents, for instance. So as wide and inclusive as a consultation as we could. Feedback was extensive, as you can imagine, from that level of engagement, and colleagues have access to the full data set in the paperwork this evening, including a confidential appendix with the full unredacted responses of all people who took part. For those who use our services, there is a very high level of satisfaction, and we should celebrate our staff who are doing a fantastic job. I would note, however, that it is our staff who deliver that service, who build those relationships with families and who make a difference to the lives of children in this borough. It does not matter whether they do that in a building that we own, that we call a children's centre, or they do that in a community venue, a church, hall, or a community centre. It is not the bricks and mortar that matters, it is the staff and the relationships that they develop with the people who use those services. I would also note that the vast majority of responses were from those who do use and currently benefit from our services. And while that is excellent, we do need to consider those who do not currently use our services and those who could benefit from us expanding our reach to meet them. I'm not going to go through all the feedback. Colleagues will have read this at paragraphs, I think it's 37 to 45 in the report. but I do want to talk about the biggest change that we have made to the proposal. I apologise, I've gone backwards. I've gone far too forward. This is the danger. So the feedback around moving our activity into the community provoked a strong response. While we do need to do that, we do need to reach families who are not currently accessing our services within children's centres. We do appreciate the feedback we were given about the safety and suitability of community spaces. Clearly, we will continue to assess venues for suitability and make sure they are safe before we use them, as we currently do. But in response to that very clear steer from our residents and those who currently use our services, we are recommending to retain 3 further children's centres at Dormers Wells in Southall, Pets Hill in Northall and Jubilee in Ealing, to ensure that those parents do have the choice to use those venues as they currently do. So this leaves us with the recommendation to proceed with a portfolio of 15 children's centres, London's largest, which you can see on the screen here in terms of where we would deliver our services from. By consolidating into those 15, we can then repurpose the others to provide further services for families and children across the borough, meeting that demand for nursery places, meeting that demand for SEND places. And there's an indication of what we think each centre can provide on screen now. And I would also note at this point that 2 of our children's centres, Copley Close and Academy Gardens, already function only as nurseries. And we propose no change to that, other than to be honest with the public that they are not functioning as children's centres and should not therefore be designated as such. Should Cabinet approve, we will then be able to proceed to work up an enhanced offer for each town. Each of our 7 towns, including Perivale, where we're not proposing any change to the children's centres on offer, will see an increase in the number of sessions we're able to run. And this is what we will hope to transition to. So, for instance, in Acton at the moment, 28 sessions across a week, and we are setting a minimum target of 32 sessions in Acton, for instance. So an enhanced offer in each town. Now, there was a question at full council last night around how this revised proposal fits in with the planned budget saving that we agreed in the MTFS. Now, firstly, I hope it is clear from this enhanced offer and the increased outreach that the savings are not predicated on us running fewer services. Quite the opposite. The savings are through running a more efficient estate, and the prevention work will create further savings through cost avoidance by preventing those very expensive social care placements later down the line. Cabinet is not forced tonight by that savings target. If we choose not to proceed, or we find that the revised proposal doesn't achieve the savings that are set out, we will manage that as an in-year pressure, as we always do, and Councillor Donnelly will ensure that we manage that as he normally does. Finally, we have spent some time on the children's centres. I should also recognise that the decision includes the proposed early help strategy itself, and the 6 key pillars of inclusion, best start, early years, transitions, adolescent contextual safeguarding, and localising plans in the national context of change. Before I hand back to you, Chair, I assume there'll be some comments and questions. Can I thank everybody who responded to the survey, came to one of the in-person or online events, and to all our partners who helped shape the final proposals and the draft strategy on the table this evening. I hope that they will continue to engage with us in the ongoing development and delivery of these vital services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blacker. There is an indication for questions from the opposition. Councillor Oxley, it's over to you. This is your first sort of contribution at Cabinet, so I'll just remind you, as I would all first-time sort of contributors, that we're here to discuss the recommendations of the report. So I'd ask that you address the Cabinet in the context of questions that relates to the report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I hope I do that, Chair. Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Blacker, for that presentation. I'd also just like to take the opportunity to thank the officers as well for the support they've given me and the opposition. The Institute of Financial Fiscal Studies has done a very large-scale study of children's centres' effectiveness, and estimate that a spend of £1 has resulted in benefits to children who've attended it of £11. What does the IFS report considered when the policy to close the children's centres in Ealing was developed?
And is that your only question? Because
no, I have 2 more.
So do you want to ask all of your questions together, and then
Sure.
I'll give Councillor Blacker an opportunity to respond to all of them at the same time?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So second question was about the number of posts. How many posts in children's centres, including vacancies, will be lost as a result of the policy of closing the children's centres? That's my second question. And the third question relates to reach. And you referred to this, I think, a bit. Many of the respondents were very uncomfortable about, in the consultation, about places of worship as venues for outreach services. In the light of this, is the policy of driving up reach to vulnerable groups not compromised?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blacker.
Thank you. We know absolutely how effective early help services are. We didn't need the IFS to tell us, because we see it in our data. We know that many of the families who enter statutory services did not access children's centre offer, which is precisely why we need to increase the reach of our services by taking it into the community to meet those families who perhaps are not currently accessing it. So precisely, we want to increase the number of families accessing it and expand that very effective service to them. In terms of the specific around,
I just
place, and
is that
sorry,
right?
Sorry, Councillor Oxley.
Yeah.
This isn't a full council meeting, and what we don't do at cabinet is sort of have a back and forth in terms of supplementaries. So I've invited you to ask your questions. You've asked the questions, and the cabinet member's responding. So thank you.
It didn't sound like an answer, but anyway.
So we'll allow the cabinet member to respond. I don't want any interjections in the course of the debate.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the staff changes, I'm aware this is also a written question for council. So I will give it a response now, but there will be a written response to that as we are required to do. Subsequent to the decision tonight, if we choose to proceed, there will be a consultation with staff. I don't want to predetermine the outcome of that conversation with staff. Clearly, there may be changes to jobs that are required to deliver a different service, but that is a conversation to be had with staff in the appropriate way. And I'm not going to predetermine that or set a target or a number now. Clearly, we want to increase our activity and do more with children and families. In terms of reach and places of worship, obviously we've responded to some of that feedback that some people might feel uncomfortable doing that by increasing the number of children's centres we are retaining. We still need to meet people where they are. It is absolutely imperative we use all the community venues we possibly can to provide the service, meet people where they are, where they congregate, where they meet, where they feel comfortable doing so. Some people will feel comfortable doing that in a children's centre. Some will feel comfortable doing that in a place of worship, a community venue that they attend regularly. It is not for us to tell people where they have to go in order to get the help they need. It is our responsibility to meet them where they are so that they have access to us.
Okay, thank you. I'll now move to contributions and questions from members of the cabinet. Do I have any indications? Councillor Newstub.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Blacker. And this has obviously been a long-standing and process and discussion and consultation, so I thank you for that. The area that I was most interested in, given my portfolio, was that one of the key priorities was the transition to adulthood. And it is clear and very clear that the earlier intervention done well through strategies such as the early help strategy changes the life chances for young people when they reach adulthood. And it seems to me that there's a significant moral imperative that we do this well. Conversely, the impacts of late intervention for people that we know don't come into children's services are catastrophic, not just individually, personally, socially for those families, but for wider society. So from that perspective, I think the focus and the emphasis on the services that we provide with that understanding of the transformative impact that we can have by keeping people out of those crisis level statutory services is really important. I was also particularly pleased to note the emphasis on co-production and involvement of young people, their families, in the way that we run services and the things that we do. It's something we take very seriously in adult social care, and I think it's great to see extended more widely. And again, that emphasis on reaching people where they are, moving away from buildings and services to outcomes that really understand the pressures that our residents are having and the challenges that they're having to deal with is the only way that we can move forward. So just in conclusion, while these are difficult decisions to make, if only viewed through the number of buildings that you have, I think really looking at this through the lens of being able to support our younger people better and keep them out of crisis, it's absolutely the right thing to do. So I look forward to us being able to offer, more support in more places and target it at those that need it most. So thank you for the work.
Councillor Nand.
Firstly, Chair, I won't repeat how Councillor Newstab's really set the foundation of why we're taking this decision today. And thank you, Councillor Becker, for a very intensive presentation and explain exactly why we're going down that route. Chair, I just want to touch base a little bit on the youth service team, and that's a core role, is really to support young children who have been arrested or been interviewed by the police in connection with the criminal offences. And we use the turnaround as part of the government's investment in the youth justice system. That's the funding for the YJS teams to intervene early. That's really aiming to prevent children from entering the justice service across the borough. And that's early intervention. It also provides really funding to engage in early with children in the cusp of the justice system. We try not to want young people to go to court. We try to help them with the turnaround plan. So turnaround for funding really intends to positively impact the local areas, aiming for low levels of criminal activity. More children get engaged in positive activities in the borough. Families receive more support and improved outcomes for children and their families. So improved early help offer will do exactly that, Chair, working with children and families, which are really focused on preventing problems and tackling challenges before they get worse. So our improved service will help families to build on their strengths and to become more independent and resilient to the challenges that they face. We need a service which is going to support young people at a very early age to set those foundations so they can get a better life and they have better opportunities and they're not entering into our justice system. Those foundations are being laid today in this report. And I think that if we ignore them, then we will be really taking the chances away for our young people and for their families for setting that stone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to contribute because I know historically finance portfolio holders can be cast as the baddie of the piece. So I want to reinforce what Councillor Becker said, not just today, but he touched on it last night in the debate that you referred to. There was no edict to do this from financial grounds. There was no edict to do anything in particular on financial grounds. We talked about the outturn earlier. Clearly, there are challenges for all services, and children's service has been battling as much as anyone on a range of fronts. But I'm in no doubt, having sat through this very intense, very well-run process, that the foundation of all of this is based on professional social care. It's not based around money. Okay, we have, like many Labour councils, I think, fought doggedly to preserve the legacy of Sure Start. But it's Sure Start was created in the context of a rising tide of local government finance and real commitment to elimination of reduction of child poverty. We had a long time of that being eroded, and the ground's changed. It's not about the context of looking after our younger children in their earliest years is not where it was 20 years ago. Absolutely, it's the case that in the investment early on saves money, but the figures that were quoted, say by Councillor Oxley, the IFS figures, those are necessarily averages. And the biggest impact, the biggest savings to be had to society, not just to the council, to society, are from exactly the children that we are not currently reaching. That 3/4 of those who turn up at a later stage in circumstances which cost society, not just financially, but in all sorts of other ways, have not been engaging with early help. And we know they haven't, maybe one or two of them have appeared from outside at a later stage, but we can track back most of them, and we know that they began here, and we just did not find them because they did not come to us. And I think it is not just a good thing to do, it is a necessary thing to do for us to go out and achieve exactly that kind of financial and social benefit that was referred to. I think it lies within these papers, and I applaud Councillor Blacker and the officers for the doggedness with which they have pursued both the consultation and the series of recommendations in front of us.
Councillor Nagpal.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'd like to thank Councillor Blacker for the presentation. It's clear to me that the buildings through which we're operating our children's centres will remain open to support families in Ealing. We're repurposing some of our children's centres to meet demand for nurseries and SEND provision, as Councillor Black has already outlined. But one thing I'd like to mention in terms of my portfolio that fits with the government's Get Britain Working white paper and the Trailblazers programme is that in Perivale, we're currently exploring the idea of having a learning zone in one of our children's centres. And a learning zone in a children's centre would be of huge value to families who can use their local children's centre to do a course where they can learn a new skill. And this is hugely important because we want to support families. We want to ensure that everyone in our borough can be supported into employment wherever they need that support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? So I will join Cabinet in sort of reiterating, I think, what is the fundamental challenge at the heart of our current early help offer. And, you know, we've even had this conversation, I believe, at Corporate Parent in depth in looking not just at the trajectory of looked after children and those, of course, on child protection plans and, of course, the volume of children in need. We don't catch 3/4 of them. We don't catch the overwhelming majority of families in need. They are out there right now struggling with any number of challenges, whether they be financial, emotional, situational, and we're simply not talking to them because the prevailing model that perhaps Sure Start started out with, and we seem to have operated until this point, is, as Councillor Donnelly, you rightly point out, come to us, not we will go to you. And I don't think it's acceptable that we continue to operate a model that doesn't seek to identify and go out and find those families for whom, with just some small intervention, however big or small it might be, we could prevent from having to intervene with, having to take quite serious decisions that can impact the substantial and material outcome of a young child who might be in an unsafe family right now. But if we'd have found them and we'd have supported that family, we could prevent that breakdown and we could turn around their life chances. And I think it's a real issue that if we cannot collectively focus our minds on the requirement to do those activities, when the thinking and development that has happened in so many other spaces tells us exactly that. Councillor Anand has made it clear in the context of how we prevent young people getting into serious crime, and that those models have been developed through decades of work in detached youth work. We know that we have to look to community-based interventions to improve people's public health. And of course, the work of social prescribing in the community has made real impacts to people's health outcomes. So we know pretty much across the board in other parts of the public service that if we can get out of our buildings and we can get into the community, we can find and we can support the cohorts of people, and in the case of early help, the families and young people for whom need that support and that intervention most of all. And in the context of a budget to which we have to direct towards the most impactful outcomes, it seems entirely right to my mind, having reviewed the report and having engaged with this with you, Councillor Blacker, over the last year, that the appropriate decision is to proceed on the basis that we have set out in the report. So I'm certainly minded to agree the recommendations. On that basis, if I could therefore ask Cabinet to review the recommendations of the report, are they agreed? Thank you very much. That brings us to the conclusion of the business. There is no any other business, so I believe the next meeting is the second week of July, and we will see you all then. Thank you very much.